Hi everyone. Today we're going to take a look at some quick updates and then do some settings on our computer. So the first thing I want to point out to you is on our Schoology page. So let's go ahead and head there. And you're going to see when you log in on the right hand side that the code of conduct assignment has been created. And so you'll see the due date is this Friday, August 15th, 7:30 a.m., meaning start of the school day. So you have to get it done by Friday and submit it to Schoology. Okay, now in general, you're going to see some assignments on Schoology on the right hand side here in this upcoming section, right? Like I'm pointing out, but the main place you are going to find due dates for things like homework and projects is in our chapter calendars. So let's go ahead and click on the chapter 1 folder. And the first thing you're going to see within every chapter folder is a link for the calendar. Okay, so chapter 1 student calendar 25-26. Go ahead and click on that. You click that link within Schoology, it'll keep you within Schoology, so you can see the calendar here, but it's a Google Sheet that we've turned into a calendar, and so really you're better off clicking where it says Chapter 1 Student Calendar again, and it will open it up in a new tab. Okay, and so the way this is going to work is this is a Google Sheet, which is, for those of you who are familiar, right, it's basically Microsoft Excel. Okay, right, and so this is just a big old spreadsheet, right? But the thing that we've done here, right, is we've organized it to look like a calendar, right? August 2025. Okay, and then you will have a little box here for every single day that tells you the important info for that day for the class. So for example, right, you can see here for the 11th, we went through the syllabus, but we didn't actually get very far with what we had on the calendar. So we're going to play a little bit of catch up today. Okay, and you can see here it says homework. It says due Wednesday. We're actually not going to be too worried about that. We're going to make the code of conduct due Friday, like the calendar says for today's homework. Okay. And so the other thing you will see too is you're going to see a lot of links, right? That's all the text that's in the blue colors. So for example, right, code of conduct, right, not only do we have the PDF on our Schoology page, it is in the Schoology assignment as well. It is also going to be on this calendar, right? So you can click on the file on this calendar, right? And now, actually taking a look at this with whoever's at home, mom, dad, whoever your guardian is, right, and doing this on Notability and you signing it and them signing it, right, all of that, right, is going to be done on your iPad. So I'm just showing you how you can get to that file. So whether it's through the Schoology, the PDF upload, the Schoology assignment, or this calendar, lots of ways to get there. Okay, now we're going to do some computer setup. Okay, so hopefully you're logged into your machine in front of you. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up some default apps. Okay, so last time we pinned Chrome to the bottom of our taskbar. Now we want to set it up so that whenever we open up a web page, right, it should happen in Chrome. So in the search bar, in the bottom middle, right, you are going to type in the word default, DEFAULT. And the first thing that should come up under best match is default apps. So you're going to go ahead and click on that. Okay. And now what we're going to do in the default apps is we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for Google Chrome. So you have to scroll, it's under Google. Okay. So there's Google Chrome, right? You're going to go ahead and click on that. And very conveniently, there's a button at the top here that just says make Google Chrome your default browser. So all you have to do is click that button, which is very nice, and you're going to notice the first two listed types of files, right, these are all file endings, HTML and HTML, are now going to open in Google Chrome, which is very good for us because everything we're going to do for a semester is a .html file. Okay, so those will all open up in Google Chrome. There's another one we're going to do, which is for PDFs. We're going to set that up for Adobe Acrobat. So I hit back. Let me just rewind this a little bit. Okay, so we can see that again. Google Chrome is the default, right, for these two file types. We're going to go back, and now we're going to click on the second program listed there, Adobe Acrobat. And now we want to switch it up. For some reason, PDFs are the only one that are not defaulting to Adobe Acrobat. And so we're going to click where it says Microsoft Edge for PDF. and we're just going to switch it to Adobe Acrobat and set defaults. And that's it. Those are our defaults. Okay. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our coding program that we use for, oh, actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke. We're going to set up some folders in the File Explorer. So that Manila folder icon at the bottom, right, for the File Explorer, you're going to click on that. Go ahead and open that up. Sorry, the video's being goofy. It should, there we go. Let's try that again. Let's see if this works. There we go, that looks better. Okay, and so when you open up the File Explorer, right, you're not going to see the screen that I'm on. You're going to see a screen that looks like this, and it literally says this PC, okay? And what you're looking for here, right, and my guess is it's the only folder that you have access to, is going to be a folder that we like to call the H drive. And this folder will have a name, like how you can see my name, Mantra, as the name of that folder. Should be your last name, right? And what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to expand this little window on the left here so you can see the names here, okay, right? You are looking for something called the H drive, okay? That's what we are looking for, right? So it should be a folder, right, with your name as the name of the folder, and if you look at the end of it, right, it should say the letter H. And so I'm going to expand it there as well, okay, right there, right? So H colon, right? And so we'll talk more about drives and stuff later on, okay, but we're looking at the H drive right now. So this is the folder or the drive we want to put all of our files in. You each have an H drive that's unique to you, right? And the nice thing about the H drive is that it is accessible on any computer at the school. So if you switch seats with a friend, log into their computer, it'll have to create a new profile for you, so it'll take a couple of minutes, but when you open the File Explorer, click on your H drive, you're going to see all the same files that you had in there on your old computer, okay? And so this is for any computer in the school. So what we're going to do is within the H drive, we're going to create a new folder. So I clicked that new button on the top left, the drop down, I'm going to select folder, and now I'm going to call it M319 followed by my last name. Okay, and now I clicked enter, and so now I'm inside of that folder. So at the top, right, you'll see what is called your file path, right? So I'm in my H drive, and I'm in the folder I just made called M319 Mantra. You should obviously not use Mantra, right? You should use your name, okay? And so now I'm going to click new again, folder. I'm going to make a folder called chapter 1, and now I'm going to hit enter. And so now I'm going to be inside of that folder. Again, look at the top, right? Look at the file path. I'm going to make another folder within chapter 1. This is going to be called sequencing. This is going to be our first topic in terms of, you know, computer science specific subject matter for the class. Okay. Okay. So sequencing, and so we'll come back to this. So you can see again at the top what is my file path. Right, I'm in my 319 folder. Within that, I'm in my chapter 1 folder, and within that, I'm in my sequencing folder. Okay, and I can click that 3 dots and go back, and I can see my file path backwards as well. My 319 folder is in my H drive. My H drive is in this PC. Right, and again, the nice thing is you log into any computer in the school, your H drive should be there. Okay, the key word is should. Okay, but I'm not expecting any issues. So again, right, there's the H drive, right, the letter H there, right, you can see it there as well. Okay, double click on that. I made a folder called M319, and you're going to notice, like, hey, Mantra, you got a whole bunch of other folders here, right? This is just stuff that I've used over the years, okay? And so I have a folder there called Previous Years that has all of the folders I've created for all the other times I've taught computer science, okay? So you can see all the folders that we've made, all right? Okay, now we're going to switch gears, and we're going to set up our coding program, which is going to be VS Code. So back on the desktop here, I'm going to click on the search at the bottom, VS space code, right? The VS is short for Visual Studio, which is the name of our program. Okay, so you're going to click on that, but before, oh, I'm sorry, don't click on that. Instead, let me show you that again. Okay, right? we are going to go to the search, type in VS Code, okay, and now we're going to click, there's a little arrow right there. We're going to click on that arrow, and that's going to give us the option Pin to Taskbar. So that's what we want to do. Okay, and now I'm dragging and holding that icon. I'm rearranging it. You don't have to rearrange it. You can leave stuff however you want. Okay, but I want it in this order. All right, and so now I'm going to click on that icon, or you can click open, and VS Code will open. Okay, and now things may look a little different on yours, okay? You may not have this whole thing on the left side that says Explorer, no folder opened, but you should see a thing that says Start, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to direct this program to the folders we just made in our H drive, okay? And so under Start here, I should have an option that says Open Folder, right? And so that's the one I'm going to click on. And now I'm going to direct it to my H drive. So I'm going to expand this so you can see right there on the left hand side, you should see your H drive. So I'm going to click on that, right? My H drive is listed at the bottom, and I'm going to click Select Folder. Now, anytime you open a folder in VS Code, it's going to say, do you trust the authors of the files in this folder? Right? And the answer is yes, because everything you're putting in this folder should either be something you created or something that I gave you. Okay, so you can click Trust. Okay, now here's the thing, right? I have a whole bunch of stuff in my H drive, so it's a little bit hectic here. Okay, so I'm going to switch this in a moment. The thing I'm showing you now is on the left hand side, right? I'm highlighting that little symbol there, right? That is going to open what you're looking at here called the Explorer. So if I click that button, you'll see it all goes away, which is very nice to do when you're actually coding, because I don't need to see all of my folders and files when I'm trying to work on a program. Okay, so you can enable, disable that, right? The other thing I want to show you real quick, I'm just going to rewind for a moment, is you can also open a folder at any time by clicking on File at the top. So you're going to see me do that right there. File, Open Folder, right? And so now, more specifically, what I'm going to do is within my H drive, I'm not just going to have it show my entire H drive. I'm going to have it just show my 319 folder. Okay, so I'm just going to click on that, right? And so now you'll see at the bottom there, Folder, it says my 319, select, and now in my Explorer, it just looks a lot cleaner, right? Because now I'm only seeing the folders that are specifically for this class. Now again, those of you who have nothing else in your H drive are going to be like, well, what's the difference with what I had earlier, right? And really the difference is more so when you have more things in the H drive. This is a cleaner view, okay? Okay, now we're going to install some extensions, okay? So on that left-hand side where the Explorer button is, at the bottom there's 5 icons, right? The last one is for extensions. So go ahead and click on that, right? And we're going to search for 2 extensions. So the first one is called Open in Browser. So just 3 words, Open in Browser. It should be the first one that comes up, and you're just going to click that purple install button, okay? And it'll take, half a second to install. You can click Trust, okay? And what this does is anytime you're working on a web page, you're going to press Alt and B on your keyboard to open that file in your default web browser, which, hey, we just set to be Google Chrome, okay? Okay, so this is a nice little shortcut to have. We'll use this a bunch. The other extension we're going to have, so I'm clicking back into that box at the top left there, right? It's just called Print. Just literally the word Print. It's the first one that comes up. Click the purple install button. You can trust it. It works. This is going to help us turn our code into a PDF that we can submit. Okay, so very easy to do. All right. So now I'm just kind of showing you within VS Code, you can click on your folders, extensions, you can X out and see your installed extensions. Okay, Open in Browser is there, Print is there, all right. And there's some other ones that we don't really need to worry about. And that's it for VS Code, so you can close that out for now. Okay, and now let's go back to the calendar, right? And yesterday, right, there were some notes we did not get to. So let's go through those real quick. What is computer science? That is going to be our first notes. Okay, so let's take a look at that. All right. Okay, so what is computer science? A quick historical context. So this is not social studies, so we'll keep this very brief. Okay, the Industrial Revolution you may have heard of, right? So it took place around the world, right, in different countries at different times. I think Britain had theirs before the U.S., for example. But really, the main goal here was mechanizing the work that was done by humans and animals. Okay, so you have these inventions like the steam engine, right? Well, it used to take a bunch of ox to pull a big cart. Now we can put that engine on a train on some tracks, right? And now we can go across the country. Okay, right? So things that used to be done by people and animals, now we have machines. So that gives people the opportunity to do new and different kinds of work. Okay, then we have the digital revolution, right? So this is we're still in, right? And basically the idea here, right, is if we can mechanize physical tasks that a human does, can we mechanize mental tasks, right? And so let's think about something you've used many times, which is a calculator, right? A calculator, right? You know, what's 9 times 7, right? You can do that in your head, but we now have a machine, right, that allows us to not do that in our head, right? And so, you know, the earliest computers were just really big calculators, okay? But this idea, right, can we mechanize a mental task, is at the forefront of technology today, right? Think about AI, right? And all the searching and responding and answering it can do, right? We're mechanizing mental tasks every single day, right? And so the study of this idea, right, is called computer science. Okay, so what is the formal definition of computer science? I'm not going to read this whole thing out loud to you. Okay, right? You can take a look at this yourself, right? But one thing I am going to point out is you're going to notice those big ideas we talked about from that big computer science principles document from College Board. A lot of those ideas are coming from this type of definition. Okay, right? We're talking about data. We're talking about algorithms, right? We're talking about creative solutions, right? Problem solving, things like that, right? These are the main focus. This is the main focus of the class. Okay. Okay. So what is computer science? Computer science is not just our image for the Schoology course. It's not just typing in a bunch of code, right? There's a lot of different things that go into computer science, more than just I know how to type code. Okay, it's a big part of it. And so because of that, right, who should learn computer science, right? I think I'm going to go back. There we go. Okay, right? We have this idea CS for all, right? We don't think that one particular group of people should learn this, right? Fun fact about me, I love social studies. When I was in high school, I'm actually a certified social studies teacher in this state. I could teach those classes if I wanted to, right? But that's kind of where my brain was at, along with the math side of me, right? So, I liked that. I liked English. I liked writing. And so I like all of these different things, right? And so, if you're like, I'm not a math science person, my parents made me take this class, just give it a shot, right? We think there's something here for everyone, okay? Okay, so what are you going to learn in this course, right? So, this slide shows 7 ideas, right? College Board has kind of combined some of this down to 5, right? But these are the big ideas we've talked about, right? So, College Board has combined algorithms and programming into one, right? So creativity and abstraction, I think that's the other one they've combined. Okay, so we've already kind of touched on this. Okay, and that's it for these notes. So there's normally a video at the end. I'm not going to show you the video within this video, okay? But that's it for these notes. So let's go back to the calendar and click on the notes for today, right? So the 12th, right, we have notes on this topic of sequencing. So go ahead and click on that. Okay, and we will talk about that. All right. And so, I know I'm not there right now, but in general, when we are going over notes in class, right, it's good to have this open on your iPad, right, so you can draw on it yourself. You can make a copy, save it into your Google Drive. You can export these notes into your Notability and ink on them. Let's make sure we're doing something so that we can jot down some of our thoughts as we go through these notes, okay? Okay, what is sequencing? So this idea of sequencing, right, is a series of actions completed in a specific order, right? I do action 1, then action 2, then action 3. All the actions have been done, okay? So let's say I'm trying to draw a square, okay? Right? So what's wrong with this sequence? I draw a 1-inch line, right? I go 90 degrees to the left, right? 1-inch line, even though I think I just turned to the right there, but draw another 1-inch line, turn left again. But the problem is if I turn left one more time, I'm actually not completing the square. I'm actually heading back to where I just came from, right? So sequencing, very important, even for a simple task like, hey, I'm going to draw this square, okay? So when we talk about sequences, right, in terms of like code or like when we're trying to complete a task, right, we have a couple of ways of representing them. On the left is this flow chart or visualization, and just a quick story for me. 20 years ago, when I took my first computer science class, we had to hand make these types of flow charts, okay? And so these shapes, there's a rectangle, there's a parallelogram, there's rhombi and the rhombuses in there, right? Those shapes all have a specific meaning in these types of things. We're not going to have you draw these yourself, but you will have to analyze these in the AP test, okay? The other thing that's more commonly used, I would say now, is pseudocode, which is, this idea of like, okay, I'm kind of writing some code, right? Like dog years equals human years times 7, right? That looks like actual code you would find in some language, okay? Mixed with just, hey, I'm just writing stuff out in English. Okay, so this idea of sequencing, right, is kind of there to kind of guide us to this idea of an algorithm. You've heard me say this word a few times now, right? An algorithm is a defined, ordered set of rules, steps, instructions, whatever you want to call them, to follow when solving a problem. Okay, so defined and ordered. Ordered, that's your sequencing right there, right? Step 1 has to come before step 2, okay? Now, this is a fancy sounding word, but you use algorithms all the time, okay? Right? If you've ever cooked anything, right, or baked anything, every single recipe is an algorithm, right? You have these ingredients, you have to do them in this specific order, otherwise your oat cakes, right, don't come out the way you want them to, right? So every recipe is an example of an algorithm, right? But you have algorithms for all sorts of things, right? A lot of you non-freshmen, right, probably drive, right? Anytime you want to change lanes, right, you have an algorithm for that, right? Put your turn signal on, right? Mirror, head check, right? And then you turn your steering wheel, turn your signal off again, right? That's another example of an algorithm. So you use these all the time. Defined, ordered set of steps, okay? So, again, right? Are the steps defined? Are they ordered? Are they trying to solve a specific problem, right? How do I make oatcakes? How do I make a left turn, right? Or if I want to change lanes to the left, right? You have a specific algorithm for that, okay? Okay, so there are often several algorithms that can solve the same problem, right? The way you change lanes while driving may not be the same as somebody who's a little more road ragey, right? Somebody who, doesn't check their blind spot, right? But they can still change lanes, right? Or somebody who makes chocolate chip cookies one way versus grandma's secret recipe, right? That's been passed down from generation to generation. So it's impossible to say which algorithm is the best, right? Your algorithm usually depends on your circumstances, right? Let's say my problem is I want to solve my hunger, right? Am I going to eat leftovers from yesterday, right? Take them out, put them on the plate, heat it up, eat it. Or am I going to make a sandwich, right? Well, maybe it depends on, what kind of bread or meat we have at home. What was yesterday's dinner, right? Either way, I can solve my hunger, right? But it depends on the circumstances, which way I'm going to go about it. Okay, so when it comes to algorithms, right, we go back in time to a very important person, kind of like the father or grandfather now of modern computer science, the great Alan Turing, who came up with this idea of saying, like, is there an algorithm to solve every single question? And so he said that questions, right, can fall into two categories, either decidable or undecidable. Okay, so a decidable problem, right, is something that always has a yes or no answer, right? So for example, is this an odd number, right? That is something that we say is decidable. Another word for this is solvable. Well, Alan Turing said, okay, well then there must be questions, right, that are not decidable, right? And so we'll talk about examples of that in a second, right? There are problems that no algorithm will be able to solve for every possible input. Okay, meaning if I take the scope of this problem and scale it out, right, does my algorithm still work, right? So does my algorithm of solving my hunger work for the problem of solving world hunger? Can I make a sandwich for every single person on earth who doesn't have food? No, I cannot, right? So this algorithm doesn't work when I scale it out. Okay, so decidable, undecidable, also called solvable, unsolvable. Okay, so a solvable problem, right, is something that can give you an answer. This algorithm gives you an answer to your question in a reasonable amount of time. So let's say I want to divide two numbers. Well, back in elementary school, middle school, you learned an algorithm for long division, right? And it doesn't matter what the two numbers are, you can always divide them, right? It always gives you an answer, okay? An unsolvable problem is something that takes an unreasonable amount of time to solve using your algorithm, right? And so a good way of thinking about this is something that you can do pretty well, but you can't play perfectly, right? So for a good example of this is the game of chess, right? And I know we have some chess players, right, in our room right now. Is there a set of moves that guarantees you a chess win no matter what? And the answer is no, right? But is there a set of moves that will allow you to beat 99.99% of your opponents? Yeah, right? Just, don't go up against Magnus Carlsen, right? But you can probably beat every single person if you find something that's good enough, right? So, modern computers, right, can basically beat every single person at chess, right? There's no set of steps that they follow every single time, right? There's no quote-unquote perfect game, right? But they can play a game that's close enough, okay? Okay, another example of a unsolvable problem is the traveling salesman problem, okay, right? So this problem says, given a list of cities and distances between the cities, what is the shortest route that starts at the first city, visits each other city exactly once, and ends back at the first city, right? This problem is believed to be unsolvable, basically because if I give you like 3 cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, could you come up with the shortest route, right? Yeah. But if I give you 300 or 3,000 cities, right, could I use the same algorithm I did for those 3 cities and guarantee I find the shortest route, right? No, right? The question becomes impractical, right, once I start giving you a large set list of cities, okay? And so for this idea, right, we have a key vocab term here at the bottom, which I apologize for not highlighting, which is heuristic, Heuristic. A heuristic approach or a heuristic algorithm is something that's good enough, right? Every computer you play in the game of chess, right, has a heuristic approach, right? It is basically good enough to beat almost every single human on Earth, okay, right? This is in contrast to something which is holistic, right? Like long division, right? Every calculator, maybe there's other algorithms for long division, but, if I'm making a calculator, right, I can program it with the same long division algorithm that I've been using since the 5th grade, right? And it'll give me an answer every single time, right? That's holistic. because it doesn't matter how big or how different the numbers are, I'm always going to get the correct answer. Okay? Okay, and that's all we have for today. All right, and so I will see you guys next time.